Welcome to the channel. I'm going to show you a couple tips that I'm going to tell you about a couple tips that I use for marketing that have helped me gain some business accounts, and maybe it'll help you. Not only are they good tips for helping you with orthodontic accounts in the dental lab, they're also good for all phases of dentistry and dental technology to help you gain future clients. So if you like these type of videos, this is a little bit different compared to what I'm normally trying to show you something or trying to do something related to orthodontics. This video's got a little different. It's more of a business strategies. If you like this type of content, leave a like below and also comment, and be sure to share. And hope you enjoy. While I'm making this video, I'm actually a dental lab that is functionally working. So it's easier for me to actually bend some wires and get some work done than it is to just make a video, cut it up, chop it up, because it takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. So I'm going to actually be bending something. And if I'm looking away from the camera, it's because I'm actually working. You're pretty much you're probably more interested in the content than you are actually seeing my lovely face watching you. The very first tip I'm going to tell you about on how to get an account would be to what I like to call the Investigator Tip. What do I mean by this? Pretty simple. You pick a client out that first of all, you know something about them. You know that their office is well kept, you've heard good things maybe, but let's go back. Maybe you don't know anything about this account. You can look them up on Facebook. You can look them up on Instagram. You can look them up on the web, look at their website, see what they've been up to. And here's the catch. You can learn so much information from these doctors online, what their hobbies are, what they're interested in, how big their office is, what kind of staff they have, what kind of if they have a lab technician working there, they'll show you, maybe a picture of someone working. You can they'll show pictures of their lab. You can see what kind of equipment they have. Maybe you recognize that they have certain pieces of equipment that that you can tell what they would be doing certain types of appliances. So you're going to learn a lot of information from spying. Say it's kind of like you're doing some nighttime spying. But here's the other catch. This is part B. When you go to meet someone face to face in the orthodontic lab, especially, orthodontists are very fun people. They love kids. They love energy. I always notice that when you walk into an office, there's a lot of energy. Okay, you can feel it. You can see that the kids are excited, the parents are excited, the workers are all in a good mood. They're having fun. They're like it's a very laid back atmosphere. So how does that fit in this conversation? It's pretty easy. You do a little research, and let's say this doctor is a huge Chicago Cubs fan, to say. And all of these pictures on the wall are Cubs win and Cubs this and Cubs that. So here's what you do. If you were to go into this office and you're dressed in your nice little suit and you look really good and you're going in, you look like, the first thing off the bat, you look like you're ready to sell someone. You look like you're ready to sell someone insurance. Don't do that. Do not do that. The orthodontists are so laid back that they don't want you walking in and looking like you're selling them insurance. Now, you also don't want to walk in preppy. You don't want to be very preppy. Like maybe you're not in a suit, but maybe you're wearing like a really nice khakis and dress shoes, and you look kind of more like the used car salesman coming into the office. Okay, your decor is more like you're trying to sell them a used car. Don't do that route either. But what you want to do is you did your little online investigating and you found out they're a huge Cubs fan. So what if you came in and you were wearing a Cubs shirt, like a nice Cubs shirt? You know, you can see the ones that you buy that are they're just like nice dressier shirt. Right away, you have a conversation started, possibly. Maybe the first person who you walk up to at the desks, they recognize you start explaining like, hey, I'm from Szara Dental Lab. I'm here to show you. I'm new to the area and I wanted to possibly introduce myself to Dr. So-and-so. And right away, the first thing she notices, you're a Cubs fan. Oh my God, Dr. Richardson is the biggest Cubs fan in the whole world. So right away, you just got a little bit of an edge. Just keep that in mind. And that's because you did your investigative reporting. Another thing is that conversation is going to help you if you know a little bit about them, because it says, like even on their website or Instagram, you can see what they're doing. Let's say they go skiing every weekend and you happen to be a downhill skier. Now you have something to talk about other than lab work, because sometimes those conversations can be awfully, you know, when you actually get to meet the doctor, they can be a little strange, you know, like you run out of things to say, or you get caught up on, especially when you're new to the business, you get caught in your words, like I am now, and you don't know what to say, but you see a picture on the wall of a local ski resort that you've been to, and you say, oh, you like the ski, and you see it, and it just starts a different communication. Now it's more about them and less about you. Tip 2. Now this is what I like to call the Canary Test. Why do I call it the Canary Test? It's an interesting tip. Remember I told you in the previous tip that when you walk into the office and the girl recognizes you and there's this great atmosphere going on in the office. It's, you know, warm and bubbly coffee machine, donuts, fresh donuts, whatever. Beautiful office decor. The Canary Test is when you walk in that office, and as you know from the past, canaries were used in coal mines to see if there's an oxygen, and if the bird dies, then you get out of there. Canary Test is the same as this. You walk into the office and you say, hi, how you doing? And the first person that meets you, the greeter, the person who's working the desk, if they have the saddest looking face on there, like, how can I help you? What do you want? The doctor is very busy. That person is the canary. Her attitude or his attitude, if it's dull, boring, you get out of there. But if they're in a good mood and you can actually break the ice, you got it. But if that person, now here's a true story. I was working for this one orthodontist, and every time I walked in this office, I got my little box of stuff, I'm going to deliver my appliances, I'm all excited. Every single girl working in this office looked, I felt the exact same way. When I walked in the office, I felt the exact same tension as going into a funeral home. And that was scary, because you can tell that all this tension was from the doctor. He was always on them. They weren't doing a good job. There's this stress. You can feel it. That nobody's happy. Everyone's got this sad face, and that's when if you're liking these tips, can you leave me a like? Because then I'll make more business orientated conversations on this channel, on the videos, so they won't be all just about work. Maybe they'll help you build a business and go after those clients. So please leave me a like and share with other people that are maybe in the field that are having the same discussions. And always hit the subscribe buttons and hit the notification bell. You need to be notified for all upcoming videos, because I've got a whole bunch of things that'll be coming up in the future. And every Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, you got a brand new video. This next tip also has to relate to what I like to call as the gatekeeper, or is known as the front desk person who's in charge of the whole front desk. The very first person that you see when you step into a dental office. And one of the things that you'll get shot down with is they will say, "Oh, we're so sorry. We have a full service lab in the back that does all of our work. We send nothing out." Now, here's the catch. If that person actually was the technician who sends things out and knows, then maybe they know what they're talking about. But let's say that person's only been there a couple of years, and here you're just taking their word. If you said, "Oh," and you just turned around and said, "Oh, I understand, you have a lab," and you walk out, you'll never know exactly what was going on with that lab, or what was going on in their lab. And the truth is, especially in orthodontics, is almost all orthodontists have some sort of lab person who's in charge of pouring all the models and taking impressions or checking all the impressions. There is a lab person who has to organize everything to ship out if they're sending it to a lab, or when they're making invisible retainers, or they're making 3-to-3 bonded 3-to-3s. There's someone that's working in the lab who does lab work. So when the person at the front desk says, "Sorry, we have a lab," what you like to do is you come back and you say, "Oh, that's great. Is there any way that, well, they must be pretty good. They work with you, you work with you," and you pay them a compliment. And you say something like, "Well, sometimes I need help in my lab when I'm on vacation. I'd like to meet someone who actually does quality work. And it would be great to be able to meet this person. Is there any way I can just have a couple minutes with them, if I can meet them?" Whoever it is. And if you give them a good enough reason, I mean, if you are being truthful, maybe you do need help when you're on vacation. It's always great to have a backup. So it is nice to meet other lab technicians. Now the catch is, you'll meet some lab people who just don't want to be bothered. Who are just like, "Don't bother me, I'm working, I don't want to talk to anyone in the public." And then there's some people that in general will be excited to see another orthodontic lab technician or a dental technician who's doing crown and bridge or whatever. They get excited. Hey, come on in, sit down, grab a cup of coffee. Let's just talk for a couple minutes. What are you doing? Are you new to the area? What kind of appliances do you make? Because here's the catch. Even if they were doing work in the lab, they don't do everything. They send certain items out. There's items like herps that are specialized that they don't have time to learn how to do them, or they don't have to manage all the parts and order supplies, and the doctor just says, "You send those out, or send the Maras out. Don't, or send functional appliances. Send them out. You don't make those. You make basic Hawley retainers, and you make invisibles, and you make certain types of items. If you have a spring retainer, I can't pay you to sit there and because they take a long time to make. Take those and send them to a lab that can make that for us. That way you can do everything else. You have to trim all the models and package up stuff. You don't have time." So then that person in the lab will be like, "Do you make these things? And you happen to be 2 miles away, or you happen, to be able to, I can ship things to you, and I can, and you bring with some samples and you're showing them like, here's my work, here's my quality." That person will be excited to see you, because they're also thinking, "Oh man, I got a vacation coming up in a couple months and I don't have anyone to cover for me, and doctor's always jamming me with appliances when I could pass those along to other technicians who could do the work and fill in for me when I'm on vacation." Now you have an in. Congratulations. True story. The same technique. I walked up to the doctor. I walked up to the desk and I asked, and nope, we send everything out. We are a full service operation. I gave him that little line. I said, is there any way I can meet them? I maybe need someone to fill in for me when I'm on vacation. Like, yeah, sure, you can meet them, whatever, like that. And so they came up to the desk and they're like, yeah, come on, come back to the lab. So I go back to the lab and I said, I heard you make everything single thing here. And they're like, oh yeah, we make all the invisibles and all the bonded things, and we trim all the models and we send things to different labs. And oh, you send things to different labs. And they're like, yeah, we don't do spring retainers, we don't do holly retainers, we don't do invisible retainers, we don't do splints, we don't do herps, we don't do um, what else did they say? We don't do lingual arches, we don't do Nance buttons. We send all that stuff out to other labs, but we do all the invisible retainers, and we polish and trim. We trim everything up, and we do study models in house. But all that other stuff we send out. Well, the bottom line is that's one of my best clients that is I've been working for 15 years, and it's all because I asked to see the lab tech. There's your tip. Okay, check this one out. This one's a different tip. This is something I learned about business strategy. I used to work for this guy. Another true story. I worked for the guy, and he was a Home Depot. He was one of my good friends, and this guy was an incredible business person. He can sell you something that you don't want. Like, he'd be like, you're gonna buy it, and somehow you'll end up buying it. So he was very good, knowledgeable about how to handle business techniques. But I used to work for him as like an understudy, and he dealt with a lot of buyers, big time buyers at Home Depot who would get their line of product into Home Depot. And I worked with him with a couple other people that we would handle some of his suppliers. And one day we met the buyer, and the guy was questioning me, and he said, Steve, when you go into Home Depot and you take care of organizing and ordering all the product for I was considered a vendor. He goes, when you order things to load up the shelves, how do you do it? And I said, well, I go and I get the IPO and I write it up and I order the stuff and then I clean up and then I talk to the manager and then I go to the I make sure all the salespeople know the product real well, and I talk to the people on the floor, and there's that key. And then the guy looked very disappointed. He was sort of like, oh, he's just like, interesting. And the conversation, left. And then I was talking to my manager at the time, the guy who was in charge of me, and he was kind of disappointed. He's like, oh, you did the kiss of death. I'm like, what are you talking about? And you kept using the word I did this, I did that, I loaded the shelves, I stocked up, I talked to this, I did that, I. And he goes, when you're talking to someone in business and you want to showcase yourself, you use the word we. So like, you never use the word I because it makes you small and independent. And when you're working in a big lab, we becomes a great word to use. We are the best at getting appliances done. We finish everything on time. We do everything. We have great customer service. You don't say I have great customer service. You say we. So how does that separate you? Okay, well, there's two different scenarios. If you're running a big lab, you use we for everything. We are the best. But if you're a guy like myself and in the lab, that's when you use the word I. So I versus we. I make all of your appliances. Now here's where the small lab really sells themselves from the big lab. When you want the doctor to know it's I do everything. I'm the one in charge of your account. I'm the one who's going to make the deliveries. I'm the one that you can yell at. I'm the one who's going to bend the wires. I'm the one who you can call in the middle of the night if you want to discuss a case. I handle everything. This puts you aside because they want to hear that when the person is making the appliance, they want to know who they're talking to, not just the assembly line of parts, the assembly line of employees. That's where you separate yourself from I and we. So sometimes it's good to use I, and sometimes it's good to use we. It's a business tip. Now, this next tip is what I like to call the ask around tip. When you're working for a doctor, ask for referrals. Ask people if they know anyone in the business that's looking for work. Ask your sales reps. Ask them for tips on who I can call on that's maybe interested in sending out certain types of appliances. Ask your family. Sometimes when you're making a sales pitch and you're like practicing, talk to your wife or your spouse or your husband. Talk to them and play out the scenario, because that's going to help you feel loose when you're talking to the doctors. One thing I learned from a guy I was working with, I was always telling him about going after business and going knocking door to door. And it is tough. It is unbearably tough to get out of the car, into the front door, have all your stuff. And he said, what you need to do is when you always have to keep in the back of your mind that one door that you open is an opportunity of a lifetime. And you always have to look at that. And if you don't get in to meet that doctor, if nothing happens and you don't get in, walk away and go after another one. But look at it as like their loss, not my loss. And that's a hard philosophy to handle, because you're always like getting shot down. But you always have to rise up, because the one door that you open could change your life. Financially, could change. You could one account will lead to another account, by referrals. So you never know what lurks behind that door. You open the door and it might be the golden ticket. And you always have to try. You can never give up. If you go, I think a lot of people say, oh, going door to door and knocking on doors is really hard. Yeah, it is. I'm not kidding. It's scary. But hold that thought. But the catch is, you never know when that door opens up and you end up meeting the nicest, coolest doctor, the coolest staff, the coolest employees. You never know when you're going to meet that person who's going to change your life. And when I'm saying about counting on your family to help you through these times, use your wife, your spouse, your husband, use them to talk these things out, because it's hard, especially if you're by yourself. I personally have a wife who is my business partner who can help me. So when I'm having a bad day, or when I was trying to build my business and get accounts, she always had my back to be able to tell me. She'd be like, well, what happened? And I'd say, this happened, or they told me they have a lab. So I turned around and walked out the door, and she'd be like, Steve, ask them if you can meet that lab person and to get in. You never know. And it's by bouncing your ideas off your partner, you might see things from a different angle. You don't know unless you find these things out. My wife's real good about customer service. She handles people, she's more of a people person. She knows how to handle, or when there's a confrontation, she knows how to put the fire out. Like if I say, oh, I'm really nervous about talking to this person about that, she's like, well, this is how you should handle it, or this is maybe a thought that maybe you say it in your own words, but this is kind of what I'm thinking, because she's looking from a different perspective. So it's always good to have a different perspective, whether that person is your mom, your dad. Sometimes they'll have knowledge that'll actually help you through these tough times of finding work. Hey, so I hope these videos helped, and thanks for watching. Leave a like, hit the share, always leave a comment just to let me know you're out there and you're actually listening. And if any of these tips you feel that they've helped, or you have stories that maybe you learned it by going out and getting business, please leave a comment below. We'll read them. Other people will read them too. You can help other dental technicians find accounts, find work, find money, find happiness. Thanks for watching. We will see you next Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm out of here.